Hello everyone, good afternoon. Our topic for today is all about the teacher in the 21st century society. So, what is 21st century teacher all about? 21st century teachers look forward to the future. They are aware in ever-changing trends in technology and in tune of what the future may bring in education. In the 21st century classroom, teachers are facilitators of students' learning and creators of productive classroom environments in which the students can develop the skills they might need at present or in future. Over the last few decades, technology industry has progressed exponentially at may mga nadagdag na din na technology tools to help teachers reach their students with different learning styles. Walang permanente dito sa mundo. Alam natin yan, maaaring bukas o makalawa may mga pagbabagong magaganap. Ang importante, ang mga 21st century teachers ay aware sila sa mga pagbabagong magaganap na iyon. At kailangan aware din sila sa mga career opportunities in the future para sa kanilang estudyante. At dapat kailangan din na always ina-advocate nila towards forward thinking and planning para ma-ensure na walang estudyante na maiiwanan. Kaya nga, looking forward in the future. Just because of technologies, today's teacher have great advantage because they have powerful learning tools. At dahil din sa mga 21st century technology, it is an opportunity din para sa mga students to acquire more knowledge. So, 21st century educator must use teaching strategies to make sure that the focus of education is on preparing to these children. Kaya nga sila tinatawag na facilitators. Kasi sila yung mag-guide at mag-prepare sa mga students para sa kanilang future. So, let's proceed to the characteristic of 21st century teachers. So first is a master of technology in the classroom or tech savvy. Technology in the classroom moves at rapid pace and teachers rides along with it. Classroom technology, whether it's for lessons, assignments, or grading, can help students learn better and faster and can help make a teacher time more effective. Pero hindi naman ibig sabihin nun kailangan yung mga estudyante is may kanya-kanya ng mga gadgets or set of tablets. Ang kailangan lang, alam nilang magbalanse kung ano yung mga gagamiting technology tools para sa kanilang klase. For example, yung TV. Yung TV, maaari nilang gamitin to present a PowerPoint para mas malinaw at mas malaki nilang makita, especially yung mga estudyante sa likod. And an effective teacher knows what technology tools in the classroom can truly help transform their students' education. They know what best tools are and when and how to use them. Second, knows how to collaborate. Working with others is an important 21st century skills. Alam natin na maaari tayong matuto sa isa't isa. Hindi lamang yung mga estudyante ang natututo sa kanilang mga guro, kundi maging yung mga teachers natututo din sila sa kanilang mga estudyante. And learning is deemed to be more effective when you can share your ideas or knowledge with others. And also, sharing your expertise and experience can motivate them to study hard and work hard. Lagi nating tandaan na ang pakikipag-communicate is mahalaga sa loob ng klase. Third is adaptive. So, 21st century teachers is able to adapt whatever comes their way. The tools have changed in the past few years. For example, yung smartboard have changed chalkboards and tablets have changed textbooks. May mga schools na din na yung mga estudyante gumagamit sila ng mga tablets. May kanya-kanya na silang gadgets at doon na nila pinapasa or ginagawa yung mga assignments, activities, quizzes, at maging yung mga topic nila is nandoon na din. So, parang yun na yung pinaka-notebook nila or textbooks nila. Pero, the practice is not. Ganun pa din yung practice ng teaching and learning. So, 21st century teacher is also able to look at their practice and adapt whatever their students needs. Third is adaptive. So 21st century teachers is able to adapt whatever comes their way. The tools have changed over the past few years. For example, smart board have changed chalkboards. Tablets have changed textbooks. May mga schools na yung mga estudyante may kanya-kanyang gadgets. Wherein yung gadgets na yon doon na sila gumagawa or pinapasa yung mga requirements, assignments, quizzes, activities, and whatsoever. At yung mga topics nila is nandoon na din sa gadgets na yon or tablets na yon. Parang yun na yung pinaka notebook nila or pinaka textbooks nila. But the practice is not. Yung teaching and learning process is ganun pa din. So, yung mga 21st century teacher is able to look at their practice and able to adapt what their based on their students need. And also, they must be able to adapt teaching styles to include different modes of learning and adapt to new technologies. At kailangan din, they must be able to adapt the curriculum and the requirements. And they must be able to use their imagination to teach in creative ways. Fourth, lifelong learners. Syempre, 21st century teachers, they are lifelong learners. Hindi lang yung mga estudyante nila ang lifelong learners, but they too stay current and on top what's new in education. Even though they may still use the same lesson plan, they know how to change it to keep up to date for what is current. And a great teacher will not only embrace technology but be willing to know more about it. Fifth, advocates for their profession. With the common core being implemented and judged, the teaching profession is being met close eyes more than ever before. So instead of sitting back, the 21st century teachers advocates for their profession. They pay close more attention on important issues and talks about them with the community. And also, kailangan they keep parents and students informed on what's going on in education and address issues head on.
So let's proceed to the pillar of education. Pillar of education is a desire to learn continuously throughout lifetime is a mark of a 21st century learner. The International Commission of Education for the 21st Century to UNESCO, headed by Jacques Delors, identified learning throughout a lifetime as a key to meet the challenges of the 21st century. The treasure within is to highlight the need for individual to learn how to learn and to cope with the rapid changes and challenges of the present and the future. The report presented as a frame that organized lifetime learning into 4 pillars. These 4 pillars are proposed as a framework to understand what students need to acquire and develop in themselves. These are the 4 pillars of education. The first one is learning to know, which is it involved the acquisition and development of knowledge and skill that are needed to function in the world, which is from the word learning to know, which is you need nagle-learn ka na or nag-aaral ka for you to know what are those things to be known, which is needed ng skills and knowledge for you to apply it in your future. The second one is the learning to live together, which is it involved the development of social skills and values such as respect and concern for others, social and interpersonal skills, and an appreciation of the diversity among people. These skills would enable individuals and societies to live in peace and harmony. Dito sa learning to live together is it involved the development of social skills, which is pwede mong may apply yung mga nalalaman mo, yung mga social skills na pwede mong may apply and for you to live with different people. The third one is learning to do, which is it involves the acquisition of skills would enable individual to effectively participate in the global economy and society. These skills are often linked to the occupational success, such as vocational and technical skills, apprenticeship, and leadership and management competencies. Dito sa learning to do, which is it involves the acquisition of a skill or a different skill, which is may apply mo dito, gagamitin mo na for the effectiveness for you to participate the global economy and society, which is pag-participate ka the different activities, different mga gawain in that community, which is yung mga yon is maaring occupational success, which is may kakatulong yung mga skills within vocational and technical skills para magawa ang dapat gawin sa isang community. The fourth one is learning to be. It involved activities that promote holistic personal development for all round complete person. This include cultivating oneself, analytic and social skill, creativity, personal discovery, and an appreciation of an inherent value provided by these pursuits. Dito sa learning to be, which is kung ano yung magiging outcome or ganun. Learning to be, kung ano yung pwedeng maging development in the end, which is it promotes dito sa learning to be yung personal development, yung emotional, body, mind, and spirit in a person. And the best example of this learning to be is a teacher who participate in training workshop that will enhance her or his knowledge and skills in teaching learning process. So sa example na yan is teacher want to learn to be more knowledgeable and to be para mas magkaroon siya ng mga iba't ibang kaalaman sa teaching learning process and different thing that she or he need in teaching process.
Pragmatism is an educational philosophy about growth and life. Ito yung pagtuturo sa pamamaraan na practical learning, kung saan yung mga estudyante istuturuan sila kung paano maging practical. Halimbawa, yung isang teacher na bago pa lamang, kung yung teacher na yon is nagtuturo sa urban places, hindi maaring ang ituro niya ay patungkol sa agriculture. Pero kung ang mga ituturo nyo naman na estudyante ay anak ng magsasaka, maaaring ituro niya is about sa agriculture. Na dapat yung mga matutunan nila is maaari nilang mai-apply sa real world. Progressivism is patungkol sa pagkatuto na mayroon aksyon, na naniniwala sila na ang pagkatuto ng mga estudyante ay hindi lamang base sa kanilang naririnig o nakikita. Dapat natututo sila by actions. Kasi nga ang learner-centered learning na tayo ngayon. Hindi na maaring hindi ka mag-focus sa mga estudyante. Kasi yung mga estudyante, sila rin naman yung makikinabang sa future nila. Isa pa, yung progressivism kasi, ang focus nito ay yung mga i-develop o enhance yung skills ng mga bata. Nang sa gayon, may handa sila sa kanilang future. And students must work on hands-on project so that learning takes place rather than memorization.
So let's proceed to the social reconstructionism. Social reconstructionism is a philosophy that emphasizes the addressing of social questions and a quest to create a better society and worldwide democracy. It also a question about society itself in a better effort to create a more successful society in the future, which is it is an educational philosophy that views as a tool to solve social problems. So, yung social reconstructionism is ginawa ginawa for social questioning, which is pinapakita dito yung mga problem that they need to improve. They need to solve for the better future of one society. Reconstructionists believe that system must be changed to overcome oppression and improve human condition. Um, Dito, they believe that um, yung the way ng isang society must be changed for them to overcome the oppression and improve human condition. The social reconstructionists also believe that our student are the critical element in bringing about social change, which is students are capable to initiate and adapt those changes, especially if they are influenced by appropriate adult role model, which is naniniwala sila na ang student ang siyang mag-change or magbibigay ng pagbabago sa isang community, which is they can easily adapt and mas madali silang makagawa ng social changes. Let's proceed to the role of the teacher, educator in the social reconstructionism. The reconstructionist classroom contains a teacher who involved the student in discussion of moral dilemmas to understand the implication of one's action. The student individually select their objectives and social priorities, and then with the guidance from a teacher and create a plan of action to make to change happen. And it emphasized that inaction should be accompanied or should be guided by a teacher. So dito, yung role ng teacher is to guide and to discuss about the moral dilemmas to be moral dilemmas para ma-implicate for them to understand to implicate of one action. So yung mga teacher is they are the one to help or give an advice for the student for their plan to make that change. Dito din sa role of teacher is yung the teacher promote not to tell what is right and wrong in society, but instead they are the guider student to explore social issues presenting alternative viewpoints, and facilitating student to analyze the issue, which is dito nagga-guide lang sila for the student to explore things in their surrounding. So let's proceed to the role of a student in the social reconstructionism. It promotes students not only to analyze the social inequalities that surround them in the society, but to actually take an action that can help them to write. So dito yung role ng student is to um, um, hindi lang yung mag-analyze, which is mag-analyze ng issue or ng problem or ng inequalities around them in a society, but also to kapag naka-analyze na sila, they need to for take an action for this problem to make a changes or make a better society. So let's proceed to the role of community in the social reconstructionism. It promotes community to have an active involvement in education. Social reconstructionists acknowledge social change can not only came from the classroom, the community the community must provide both the resource and support the goal to be accomplished in order to have an equal democratic culture for all people. So dito sa role of community is hindi lang dapat sa classroom, hindi lang dapat sa society sa classroom nagmumula yung mga or na nagmumula yung mga yung mga ideas or knowledge to change the society, kundi pati din sa community, which is yung community and school were both acquire or give support to the problem that need to solve. Role or purpose of schooling. It is used for students that need to learn in a safety and right area. Critically examine all cultural and educational institutions and recommended change and reform as needed. To teach student and the public not settle for what is, but rather to dream about what might be. So dito sa role of schooling is student must be learned in safety and in the right area, which is they can critically examine all culture and educational institution and recommended for changes as needed. Let's proceed to the Paulo Freire's philosophy. Paulo Regulus Neves Freire is a Brazilian educator and philosopher whose experience living in poverty led him to champion education and literacy as a vehicle for social change. One of the best known of most essential radical education theories in the 21st century. His work has exercised considerable influence among progressive educators all over the world. According, he was influenced educational theoretician, contributing his well-known book as the Pedagogy of the Oppressed to the international discourse and radical pedagogy. He is widely regarded as the father of critical pedagogy perspective of education. Freire's main work concerned literacy and the desire to help men and women overcome their sense of powerlessness by acting in their own. The oppressed, as he called them, could transform their situation by thinking them critically about reality, then taking it an action. Freire used his book to help the oppressed fight back, to regain their lost humanity and achieve full humanization. This introduced the central problem of the book: how to create an education system with oppressed people, for oppressed people that will help them to become free. So yung oppressed people is those people that abuse of power or authority. Fairy's philosophy. In his this philosophy, which refers to the known as scientific revolution humanism, that those who attempt to the redress the illness of the suffering of humanity are not leaders who work for the people, but who work with people as a servant. Freire's educational view. He offers in his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed a detailed analysis of the shortcoming of the perspective style of teaching. In perspective, teacher assume an authoritarian rule. He refer this as the bank system of education, which man transact is the act of transferring information from teacher's head and depositing the information to the head of a student. According to him, no one can teach anyone. No one can earn alone. People learn together and acting in and in other word, which is um, um, hindi ka makakapagturo kung walang iba. Hindi ka makakapag-earn ng knowledge or ng iba't ibang skills kung wala ang iba. Which is people learn together. Dito na pumapasok yung sinasabing no man is an island, which is walang nabubuhay na mag-isa. Aim of education. According to Freire, the function of education is to humanize or ano to, tumulong upang maka-create ng humanize individual through conscious action for the purpose of transforming the world. So let's proceed to the conceptual tools, which is there are three conceptual tools that very pedagogy used in his book, which is number one is critical pedagogy. It is an educational approach for development critical consciousness or critical awareness in the learner. It enables student to question and challenge domination, the belief and practices that dominates. It takes several concern the issue of power of teaching and learning conference. So this dito sa critical pedagogy is nade-develop yung awareness of student, awareness of learners, awareness of learners enable them to question and challenge domination. The second one is banking system, which is the term banking system is phrase used ironically by Ferry to describe the prevailing system education, which is it deposit information and knowledge between student and teacher, which is dito sa banking system of education is a teacher deposit knowledge into the head of student. Sila yung magbibigay ng learnings in student. So the third one is the problem posing education. It is a method that Peirce suggests instead of other authoritarian method, which is ironically called banking education. It based on a principle that is learner better when he creates knowledge and create for him. It start with the life situation and reality learners, which is dito sa posing problem of education is magkaiba sila ng banking education. Ang principal or focus nito is on how a learner create a better knowledge and how knowledge create a better of him.
The philosophy, who is one of the most goods in books. It's all about his book is the educational, social, political. He is Jurgens Habermas. Jurgens Habermas
is currently ranked one of the most influential philosophers in the world, bridging continental and Anglo-American tradition of thoughts. He has engaged in debate with thinkers and divers as Gadamer and Putman. His extensive writing and work address topics stretching from social political theory to aesthetic epistemology and language to philosophy of religions, and his ideas have significantly influenced not only philosophy but also political legal thought. Sociology, communication studies, argumentation, theory, and rhetoric, development, psychology, and theology. Most of his books is all about the sociopolitical and epistemology, sociology, communication, and arguments. Sample of his books here is the theory of communicative action. This is all about, in his book Theory of Communicative Action, he argued that human interaction in one of his fundamental form is communicative rather than strategic. In nature, insofar it is and at mutual understanding and agreement rather than at the achievement of the self-interested goals of individuals. This is all about how could you communicate to others how your idea must be connected in a topic. It is important the nature of mutual understanding and agreement rather than the achievement, because how could you argue with your side? How could you defend it? By communication only. So it is not the achievement is your goal. It is the how could you argue. It's all about here. Such understanding and agreement, however, are possible only to the extent that communicative interaction in which individuals takes parts resist all forms or non-rational coercion. The notion of an ideal communication community functions as a guide that can be formally applied both to regulate and critique concrete speech situation. Using this regulative and critical ideal, individuals would be able to raise, accept, or reject each other, claim to truth, rightness, and sincerity solely on the basis of the unforced force of the better argument. When you are in the argument or in a battle of his speech, you need to defend your side in a truth, rightness, claims the truth, sincerity, and solely. You need to accept if you lost the battle, if you need to accept, reject, or acceptable. Habermas' findings carried wide-ranging normative implication in moral views yung communicative hadden 1983 Moral Consciousness and Communicative Action. He elaborated a general theory of discourse ethics or communicative ethics which concerns the communication community. Habermas defend from postmodern criticism and enlightened ideal of normative rationality, and especially the idea of unconcentrated communication is guided by reasons that can be rejected or redeemed by speakers and hearers as true, right, or sincere. Of his books is the structural transformation of the public sphere. Habermas' examination of kind of publicity that originated in the 18th century, but it still has modern relevance. It begins by attempting the then create what Habermas calls the Bourdieu's public sphere. It defines the public sphere, the private sphere, who will join together to form a public. He traces the history of the division between the public and private language and philosophy, economic developmental vital in evolution of the sphere. Habermas emphasized the role of capitalist mode of production and the long-distance trade in new commodities in this evolution. The most important feature in the public sphere as it existed in the 8th century was the public use of the reason in rational critical debate. This book is all about in the evolution of public sphere, which focuses in the economic development vital evolution and the publicity of original rated in 18th century. This is the relevance of attempting to demigrate of Habermas, which he can contribute his idea about the evolution of this book, about the instructional transformation of the book sphere. The next philosopher, he is Tudor Ramel's philosophy. A philosophy and visionary educator and the founder of Reconstructionism, is a response to the horror of World War II. He believes that education had the responsibility to mold human beings to cohesive and compassionate society. So he is the founder of Reconstructionism. Let's tackle later on the Reconstructionism and its part. So Bramels believes that education had the responsibility to mold human beings to a cohesive and compassionate society. Yes, true. Education is have the powerful to mold human being to a cohesive and compassionate society, but we need also to help ourselves to be more competitive and knowledgeable person to achieve the cohesive and compassionate society, and to also help the private language and philosophy, economic developmental vital in evolution of the sphere. Habermas emphasized the role of capitalist mode of production and the long-distance trade in new commodities in this evolution. The most important feature in the public sphere as it existed in the 8th century was the public use of the reason in rational critical debate. This book is all about in the evolution of public sphere, which focuses in the economic development vital evolution and the publicity of original rated in 18th century. This is the relevance of attempting to demigrate of Habermas, which he can contribute his idea about the evolution of this book, about the instructional transformation of the book sphere. The next philosopher, he is Tudor Ramel's philosophy. A philosophy and visionary educator and the founder of Reconstructionism, is a response to the horror of World War II. He believes that education had the responsibility to mold human beings to cohesive and compassionate society. So he is the founder of Reconstructionism. Let's tackle later on the Reconstructionism and its part. So Bramels believes that education had the responsibility to mold human beings to a cohesive and compassionate society. Yes, true. Education is have the powerful to mold human being to a cohesive and compassionate society, but we need also to help ourselves to be more competitive and knowledgeable person to achieve the cohesive and compassionate society, and to also help the society and growing up. not at all in ourselves only. Next is school become powerful for social and political change. He recognized the potential of other human annihilation through technology and human cruelty of the capacity to create a benefit society. Education cultural foundation of education and emerging age education as a power and etc. The objectives of this writing to present the objectives of this writing is to present the brief synopsis of Bramel's education philosophy, manufactured consensus that particularly evident in the modern politics with the rise of new disciplines such as advertising and public relations. This and large governmental and organization replace the old institution of the public sphere. This this philosophy is he focuses in the education, the power of education, the about the Reconstructionism and his part. It says here Reconstructionism is all about the power phase of social and political changes. How it is school change the surroundings or the mind of the every student that Reconstructionism needs the every individual to help every student to mold at all, not only education but ourselves too.
Good day to everyone. So today I will going to discuss about the philosophies of Harold Rogge and Alvin Poffler about the education in the 21st century. Who is Harold Rogge? Harold Rogge was a longtime professor of education at Teachers College, Columbia University, was one of the best-known educators during the era of progressive education in the United States. Rogge was the first to really grasp the meaning of social studies. Social studies, it is the various aspects or branches of the study of human society considered as educational discipline. One of Rogge's most influential works is The Man and His Changing Society. It is a series of educational pamphlets which focus on the social problems in the United States and encourage students to explore potential solutions. It is focused on the social ills and problems in American society which struck many as unpatriotic. Rogge's educational philosophy is through a school of the world we shall disseminate a new conception of government, one that embraces all the collections activities in men, one that will postulate the need for scientific control and operation of economic activities in the interest of people. He would agree that knowledge is power, and he would want to educate people to nurture democracy and by engaging them fully in democratic dialogue. Harold Rogge had a suggestion in the curriculum. These are develop whole child and include social studies. Teachers should be prepared for teaching, prepared lesson plans in advance. The first one is teachers should be prepared for teaching. Preparedness is very important in teaching. You should spend enough time to study your lesson so that you can deliver it clearly to your students. Second one is teachers should prepare lesson plans in advance. As of today, teachers create or make use of lesson plan as their guide for them to organize their teaching ways or methods. Harold Rogge's social philosophical views is, it is better to study fewer events, people, and places, but to do so with more depth and drama. He would likely urge us to redefine the notion of intellectual capital. If we can say intellectual capital, these are the human capital, information capital, brand awareness, and instructional capital. Includes the attributes of creative social intelligences. Now we will proceed to Alvin Poffler. Who is Alvin Poffler? He was an American economist and philosopher who has widely influenced the theories about the information age and knowledge age of contemporary society. Future shock. One of his work that means as a certain psychological state of individuals and entire society. Toffler's educational philosophy. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. According to Toffler, there are the teaching role of 21st century educator. These are increasingly emphasizes mediated learning, critically change from that of being a pedagogy to that being a facilitator. The educators of today need to be curious, flexible, and forward thinking. What is mediated learning? Mediated learning is the social interaction between teacher and learner for the enrichment of the student's learning experiences. For example, sa classroom environment, hindi lamang yung teacher yung nagsasalita sa harap, hindi lamang siya yung nagtuturo. Though binibigyan ng opportunities yung mga students para makapagsalita sa harap at makapagbuo ng mga idea through reporting and showing their performances. And through that opportunities, nabuboost yung confidence nila and nasi-share nila yung knowledge na meron sila. The second one is critically change from that of being a pedagogy to that being a facilitator. Means, the teachers is ina-ensure niya yung mga learning objectives if ito ba ay na-met effectively with a good thinking and a good participation of the students and a full buy-in from everyone who is involved. The third is the educators of today need to be curious, flexible, and forward thinking. Curious, ibig sabihin kapag marami tayong mga tanong, mas nagigising yung interest natin para matuto, para masagot yung mga bagay na yon. And forward thinking, for example, ang mga students ay may na-assign sa kanila na kanya-kanyang topic, ay mag-spend sila ng time para i-review or mag-research kung ano yung about sa topic nila for their reportings. Toffler's social philosophical views. Society needs people who know how to be compassionate and honest. Society needs all kinds of skills that are not just cognitive, they're emotional, they're affectional. You can't run the society on data and computer alone. It means that not only knowledge or education are being prioritized, but our care and affection to other people are really important. The data, knowledge, or even the computers alone are not enough, but we should help each other for our improvement and development of the society. All of his works really influenced the social and economy. His pinnacle work, The Third Wave, describes his analysis of the history of social economics in patterns he generally describes as a waves.